G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Scouting Australia podcast, powered by Australian Property Scout Buyers Agency. I'm your host, Sammy Gordon, and I'm joined once again by Jimmy.
Mate, good to be here. G'day, everyone. I hope everyone's well.
Good to have you back in the Sunshine State, mate.
Look at this sun.
How good. How good.
You picked it. You picked it well.
I did.
Moving up here.
The state, yeah.
This is awesome. I love Penrith. It's, what's wrong with, what?
I'm just laughing at your face. I just realised there's something on it. But, sorry, what did you, Penrith. You paid out Penrith people?
No, mate, I've actually lived out in Penrith for a little bit. My brother used to live out there.
There you go.
Out in the Panthers territory.
Mate.
Reigning premiers.
There you go.
Which you wouldn't know much of with your semi-professional career.
Not much at all, mate. Not much at all. But guys, we're back to a Q&A episode. We've had plenty of people reaching out, sending in their questions, which of course we appreciate. Thank you very much for it. Thanks again for tuning in and sending them in to listen. Now, there's a lot in here, Jimmy. There's a fair few, mate. We always get pumped with the questions. We're going to pull out a bit of gold. Some of these we're just answering people like real briefly that's going to be answered in a different app too.
Yes.
But it's good to like probe and get people thinking about different things as well.
Mate, I am waiting for someone to stump the bull shark, just to give him a real stunner. You know, that little sting.
Yeah. Stun mullet look. You look in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, that stun mullet look, that's what you're hoping for from there.
No, because if people know the bull sharks out there, they just swan around thinking they just own they own the plains. They just, the arrogance.
The plains, they're in the water, mate.
Well,
do you know what a shark is?
The ocean.
It's not on a plane.
Ocean.
You goose.
The seaplanes. Have you never heard the term?
A seaplane? Yeah, it flies above the water, mate. Get on with your questions.
you've got the bull shark floating around, but sometimes the bull shark gets pegged by the big great white. So we're going to actually see if someone can stump you today.
So you're calling yourself the big great white?
The grey white.
Grey white, yeah.
No,
grey nurse. You're the grey nurse. The big blubber grey thing. That's you.
Gee, the grey nurse sharks are nice, aren't they?
All right. First question, Jimmy. Let's roll.
First question off the top. It's Jayish.
Big J.
Big J. Hi, Sammy, Jimmy, loving the podcast and loving your story too.
Thanks, Jay.
The deals you went for, the way you went about them, the negotiation, it's very inspiring. Now, before we get into the rest of the portfolio of you, Sammy boy, could you please talk a bit about what your overall position is like the total portfolio value, LVR, was it principal and interest only, and the total equity created after the 4 properties?
From the last one,
yes.
I'm guessing he's talking. Yep,
he is. Now, my question to you, what, are you prepared to give this up? Or should we do a recap when we do your next portfolio?
I think it'll probably be more relevant when we do the next portfolio. But Jay, mate, it is a great point. And what we'll do is we'll do a recap before we start the next one. And at the end of each ep, we'll bring it in and go, all right, this is how we'll sit at this time. Estimated sort of market values, debts, rents and whatnot as well. So, because
what do we cover up to there? We're up to 6.
Up to 6, yeah, 6 properties deep. About to hit the
6 deep.
A few big numbers there. So yeah, mate, it's coming up as well. I think it could be in the next week or two. It's coming.
I think so. Hold your hats, because if you listen to the other podcast, Sammy dropped a bit of a bomb. He said the 7 and 8. That was a pretty big year for you.
Yeah, it was a big year. Very big year.
There was a bit sensitive there. There was a lot going on. There's a few battle scars there too, folks. Get the Mills and Boone. Get the Kleenex out, because there might be a few tears as well.
Yeah, for the spray and wipe, you'll wipe Jimmy right off the table. So
we might spray you because you're a mosquito.
Mate, you're a pest. Get out of here. Next question. Next question. I've been sent a screenshot, so I don't even know who it's from, so I apologise.
Anonymous
Smith, he's back. No, I like this guy better than Anonymous. All right. Hey, Sammy / Jimmy. I'll just throw that in there because I'm sending this to you.
Are you?
I have listened to all the eps of your potty. Definitely a fan, and I'm picking up a lot, especially when you unpack some of the reasons behind your strategies and deals purchased. Couple of questions / topic suggestions. Would like to see a discussion on financing and approaching banks and lenders. I'm starting to understand some of your strategies, but what happens, Jimmy, when the bank says no?
Oh, no.
Wow.
You need a bit of a...
That was my response in my head when you said that.
That's the one. You needed a little buzzer after that. No. So again, what happens?
Yeah. Like, what do you do when the bank says no?
where you just shut up shop and just say, oh, I might as well invest in some shares.
Again, guys, why he's a level 3 about to be demoted to a level 2 investor.
Well, he's obviously sent it to you, big dog.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what would you do?
It's got to assess the portfolio. So if you get to the point where the bank says no, you got to assess the portfolio. What's in it? Is there anywhere you can either be looking within the portfolio, pull some levers to drive some additional cash flow in the portfolio, potentially do some small renovations or whatnot to be able to drive additional rents. Have you got anything you can build secondary dwellings on? Potentially you can get a loan for something like that as well. But if you're literally stuck and the bank says no, which you will find out in the next episode what happened to me in my own portfolio, sometimes you have to look at selling. And if you've had an asset in the portfolio, it's had a great run, you've had a great growth, sometimes, especially in the current interest rate environment we're in now, a lot of people planned with their portfolio thinking rates were going to kind of stay at this level for quite a while. They obviously haven't. So a lot of people are reassessing options and opportunities and kind of changing the game and looking what they can flick and rebuild.
That's right. So you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Yeah. Mate, that's a
bit like your ex-girlfriend.
That's a saying
let's fold this up.
That's a saying from the ages that you've just delivered on a platter. Well done, mate.
You knew it. You finished it.
Yeah, because you said it to me before. That's why that one.
So what you're basically saying, Sammy, is control the controllables. Focus on what you can control.
Yeah. Have a look inside the own portfolio.
Yes.
What levers can you pull?
Yes.
If there's nothing there.
If you can't pull that.
Yep. You pull something else. Like a sale.
Yes.
Like a sale, potentially looking at selling. So that's one part of it. All right, that's the question. So moving into, he's got a few questions in here.
Jeez, Anonymous
Smith, he's in there amongst it again. What tips do you have in making yourself look good, i.e. low risk to the banks? I don't have the best history of savings or budgeting.
Wow.
No wonder he's going by Anonymous. Sneaky little bugger.
What would you do to make yourself low risk? I mean, depends. It depends on your situation, right? So if you haven't got a high income, or if you've got a few kids, or I mean, obviously the bank is going to see you as more of a risk than if you're not.
Yes.
So can you really hide your situation? I've got 3 kids, but I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm married. I've got my mistress, but I'm not paying for anything. What do you do, Sammy?
There's different things you can do, right? So even in this one, he says, I don't have the best history of savings and budgeting. Most banks will only look at the last 3 months worth of statements. Some banks look at 6. Most of them only look at 3. So if you're shit with all this sort of stuff, I'd be clipping things like credit cards, trimming them right back, cutting up most of them if you don't need them, if you've got more than one. If you need one, reduce the limit so it's heaps smaller. Save and be really clean with what you've got coming in and out of your bank. The banks hate seeing things like, what's that? Like Zip Pay. What's the other one?
Yes.
It's a really popular one. I don't know. All those different things.
What are those anonymous charges that you have on your credit card that have that?
I don't have a credit card. Never had a credit card, so stumped you on that one, big fella, or little fella, should I say? But those 3 months, of bank statements, they're the things that you really want to make clean. If you make those look clean, that's what they run your living expenses and your life expenses off.
Yes.
So if they look really bad, like we've had clients before where they everything looked good on. They thought they all looked good on
Sports
paper.
bet.
Yeah, but they were spending heaps of money on all this dumb shit, and it came back and bit them on the ass.
Yes.
And if you're running multiple gym things and all the rest of it, all these different little subscriptions, they all eat away at that borrowing capacity. So that's a big thing I'd look at, is really having a good look around that. What can you trim out, tighten up, and even if it's for a 3-month window to get yourself your pre-approval, you're probably going to form some pretty good habits of getting rid of all that stuff.
So are they looking at every single bank account you have, or more your credit card statements, or?
It's more, credit card statements and like your savings account where like your money's coming in and out as well.
But do they just want to see that you obviously your income, they want to see a steady element of savings? Is that what they want to see? They're not going to look at what you're spending your money on in a way, are they?
Yes, 100% they are.
They really?
Have you bought before?
Yes.
Okay.
With pesos.
No, so like 100%, dude. They go through it, and they like the last couple of years.
I can't remember the banks looking. I can't remember.
Probably because yours isn't too bad. So it's when people's are bad, that's when they get pulled up on it. Most people don't realize they have an issue. Like if they don't have like an overspending issue, they normally don't get pulled up on it.
Yes, I couldn't recall at all.
I see it a lot. Like I actually see it. Not heaps, because obviously like we deal with a lot of different people, but I see it probably more often than you'd think, people are overspending on different things, heavy shopping habits, heavy online spending is the big one,
okay.
multiple memberships to different things, and you're using your zip pay and all the rest of sort of stuff as well.
I think you are right. There's probably, obviously when you do submit your bank statements to show your balance or whatever, how much money you got. But
why else are they asking for it?
Well, yeah, you're right. So they're really looking through. And
they will. And different banks at different times will look more stringently and with more of a fine tooth comb.
Okay.
His next question was, how far back do they look? What is their checklist potential
answered
lender
that.
review? Yeah, so
3 to 6
3 to 6.
Yep.
I've done some refinancing and I'm now down to PPR.
Actually, so can I just say, when you're doing that, just as a hot tip, not to steal your hot tip, but this is a great little lesson for people.
Okay.
But when you're going through,
Here we go. Yeah.
if you've got the 3 months and you're looking
Yeah.
through and you're trying to cut, you start looking at, shit, what am I actually spending money on?
Yeah.
Because often you don't, you're just spending money willy-nilly.
pulling the card out.
You got all these little charges that you don't know what you're doing. So doing this exercise is actually really good. Get control of your finances.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, do I really need to spend the money on this? Have I gone to the gym where I'm paying 30, 50, whatever, and I'm not even using whatever you're doing?
Yeah.
And really trim the fat. Because if you want to get better at your investing, you need to be good at your finances. You can't pretend that you want to get the results, but you just piss farting around with your money, wasting it, pissing it up against the wall. Don't you
Well
agree?
done, Jimmy. Well done. Sorry, bro. I know I was smirking at you the whole time because you said like cut the gym membership to trim up, and I'm like, yeah, trim the fat. Actually, you said. I was like,
Trim the budget.
Yeah, trim the budget. Trim the budget. There
You
we
should
go.
actually start going to the gym.
You should get more than one membership because one is not doing enough for you. Hang on. What's his last one he's got? Oh, mate, you're just too easy to shred. Sorry, bro.
I am
Speaking of
shredded.
shred, you need to do some more work. All right. I've done some refinancing and am now down to PPR and investment loans only. Is there any other low-hanging fruit I can go for to ensure that I don't tap out too early for lending? So just going back to exactly those points we we're just making, trimming up your afterpay. That's the one I was looking for before. Your afterpays.
You shouldn't be doing afterpay, should you?
Nah, and like just all those extra little things that they look at. Here we go. I'll give you a hot tip of the week. One of the best things you can do to mitigate this sort of stuff, and like if you go for a morning coffee every day and you're tapping it on your card, they're tracking that all the time.
Yeah, wow.
All right? They add all this sort of stuff to your equation. You go and pull it out of the bank, out of an ATM, and you use that instead. They don't typically class that as discretionary spending. So you can actually, I wouldn't say hide, but like it's a cleaner way of doing it. If you're going to do it, maybe go get a couple $100 out of that.
How will one bank know that you got another bank account with?
I'm not even saying with the other account. It's viewed differently
Yeah.
the way they do it. So it's a good way of running it and kind of not looking like you're tapping your card every day for a coffee or for a lunch or whatever. Pulling out $100 on the weekend and then using that for your lunch and your coffees all week.
So if you're doing your Krispy Kreme donuts
daily.
regularly, you got to cut them out as well because they add up.
They do.
I know they have some bargain deals when you buy them in bulk.
Yes.
But little discretionary spending that you can afford to give up, you got to get serious.
That's it. All right.
I think that's it.
That's it. Next one.
Liam.
From Big Liam T. Big dog.
Mr. Big T. Hey, fellas.
Mr. T.
Mr. T.
Mr. T himself.
Currently in the process of buying some residential properties through you guys. However, I'm always looking
Liam.
for more options and avenues. I'm wondering if you think buying in a self-managed super fund is a good idea, particularly a commercial property, as I believe it has some advantages over residential, especially if your business uses the premises. I know generally you need 30 to 40% deposit for a commercial property. Now, is this the case for self-managed super fund? As I have read different things on this, even some saying you can borrow at 90%. Hold your hat.
Wow.
Keen to hear your thoughts on this, Sammy. And if it's a good idea, what would be an ideal amount you would need for a good purchase? So you're saying in his self-managed super fund.
Yeah, you forgot to sign off.
Cheers, legends.
Thanks,
I
Liam.
thought he was just talking to me, but go on.
These legends. I was surprised he included
Yes.
you in that, but anyway. Okay, so there's a few things to unpack here. Firstly, thank you, mate. We enjoy having you as a
Big
client.
T.
You're Mr. T. You're a legend. Okay, there's a few things to unpack here. Like as far as I know, in terms of SMSF, and 90%. So even from the residential sector, which commercial is looked at a more risky product than residential. So typically, even outside of trust and whatnot, typically your commercial LVRs are lower because it is a riskier product than residential.
Have more things on the line.
Yeah, more of your own cash in the deal, 100%. So typically, it's actually a much higher a much lower LVR, higher deposit amount to get into commercial. SMSF is no different. I have different strategies on SMSF, and that's why this is going to come in at a different podcast at a different time. And I'll probably throw out as well, guys, obviously, everything we say in each episode, it's always in the show notes. It's not financial advice. But when it comes to SMSFs, this is just a general chat between Jimmy, Liam, and I over a couple of beers, a couple of skewies.
A couple of quiet ones.
You have a
Chardonnay.
Shardy? Yeah, Shardy with the shandy, a bit of Schweppes or something in there as well. But guys, with SMSF, and for one, I know Liam's a young fella as well. SMSF is one of those things that is actually it's actually a vehicle you can be a bit more aggressive in than you kind of think. So they view it as a very different entity to yourself. We'll go through this in a big proper podcast because this is a whole thing I can unpack.
There's a lot of layers.
There's a lot of layers, but I don't like the idea of commercial in SMSF early. I like it a little bit further down the track, typically when you're like 10 to 15 years away from retirement and you can load it up as a P&I loan, and then by the time you hit 60, you own the thing outright. What I would be trying to do first is stretch and build your capital as much as you can before you do that. How do you do that? You go through cycles and you buy in at the bottom of cycles and you sell at the top. Essentially, think of it kind of like, I guess, in a way, flipping. But the important thing to note with SMSF is you cannot build. You cannot extensively renovate. You're supposed to do absolutely minimal work. It's only general upkeep and maintenance on properties.
A little cosmetic stuff you could do.
Yeah, it's maintenance. So it's literally supposed to be maintenance only. It's a fine line in terms of what we can tread and what we can say on this sort of stuff. But yeah, you essentially can't change the physical aspects of the property, right? But what you can do is you go buy in a market at the bottom, you make a discount on the way in, you ride that market to the top, you sell out of it, you get your $100,000 back you put into the deal, you might get $200,000 profit. What are you rolling into? You roll into a couple more deals. You rinse and repeat, you recycle and you build this thing until you have a couple of nice big chunky deposits at the back end that you could then potentially roll into and invest into some commercial at the back end. So I do like the commercial idea at the back end. I do like it.
So you're not chasing the cash flow of a commercial property early. No. You're saying build the base, build the chunks of equity.
Yep.
It still needs to be positively geared though, right?
It's actually very rarely positively geared because
in super.
Yeah, and super because okay, so this is a big thing, guys. A lot of people kind of get wrong a bit on the commercial side as well. Like you're normally paying a higher interest rate quite often, especially in SMSF. You're paying P&I as well. So like you're not going to be generating some huge cash flow that's going to build in this huge nest egg of cash sitting in there for you. Most of the time, you'll have paid the thing off, which is great to have a cash flow stream at the back end. Yes. But I would prefer to build that capital base early, be able to multiply that and then roll that into maybe one or two better quality assets with more capital than you could now with your limited capital that's not really going to grow. It's just going to, it'll pay itself off, but it's not really going to grow.
So you're saying don't buy a crappy commercial property early. Wait, because if you don't have a huge deposit, you're not going to be buying...
Especially if you're going in with a 30-40% deposit plus closings, you need liquidity in self-managed super as well. This is a lot more to it. I would be trying to build it. Grab yourself something really, really like build out that asset base first before you roll into
Bread and butters.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
100%. There was one other thing he's asked there as well, particularly commercial properties. I believe there are some advantages over Resi, especially if your business uses the premises. So that's a question for your accountant, if you have a savvy accountant, in terms of if you are a business owner and you're buying, commercial premises for the use of your business, which is possible and you can lease it back to your business. It is workable on it. It's just how much capital do you actually have in your super? Are you able to actually buy something that's going to be useful for you with your business as well? But that's something to talk to your accountant about.
Quick question though, with Liam there. How much would you need to start investing with your self-managed super fund? Because Liam is a young fella. I don't know how much he's got in his self-managed super fund already, but what would you be looking at?
It's funny. A couple of years ago, I remember always people talking about you need at least $200,000.
It was the magic number, 250.
It was weird, eh?
Why was that?
I bought my first one with less than $100,000 in my super, including liquidity. And have done very very well out of it.
And what LVR was that?
80%.
Oh, you were able.
Yeah, you can get 80s on Resi in super. Okay. What I would typically recommend is like if you have over 100 grand, or especially if you have 150 plus, you have more than enough to get started on your journey. The really big thing about super, and we will literally do this in an app because it is a very, very powerful vehicle that a lot of people overlook. But that multiplying effect, like not needing to pay an exorbitant amount of tax, being able to sell it, pay a small amount of tax, recycle, keep building the profits and whatnot as well. But the awesome part of it is like if you do that early and you allow it to compound and you roll and you multiply that portfolio, you can be left with like a beast at the back end. Yes. And like a lot of people, and I remember thinking this 10 years ago, man, I'm not really that worried about super because it's so far away. Like I can't even use it for back then. I remember thinking this in my early 20s. There's like 40 years until I can really touch it. But if you're building wealth and you're doing everything else you're doing and you're just doing it on the side, let's say you're flipping a property, you buy it and then you sell it in 5-7 years. And then when you do that, you roll the profits into another 2 properties. And then 5 or 7 years after that, you do that again. It's not that much work to be left with a ridiculous amount of money at the back end and a really big, large portfolio, and especially if you're invested into some really solid commercial deals at the back end of it as well. There's just so much you can do with it. Yeah. That's why we will dive into it. I'll break it down properly in terms of what you can do for it. But in a nutshell, man, Liam, mate, I would be building it out in Resi first. Kind of look at it as like a second portfolio to yourself, and work towards being actually able to buy a really good commercial property at the back end. Not just something you can afford now. Not just like a $400,000-$500,000 investment that you can afford now, a better quality, better tenanted sort of style asset that's maybe worth a bit more, bigger ticket item in a little bit further along the track where you can afford that better quality asset.
All right. I think you nailed that. I'm looking forward to that SMSF.
You're probably a little bit too close to the age.
I knew you was going to come out with it.
You're probably I
was waiting for you
to bother doing it, putting it together.
Put the rod out for a little while and you didn't nibble. Clearly, you're
I was trying to be respectful, but then you just kept throwing it out, man. I just had to deliver what the listeners wanted.
So, next question.
Yes.
Is it from you or me?
This is me. Oh, hang on a sec. All right, here we go. Big Shano. Shane.
Okay.
Hey, Sambo, and old dude. So I get this on separate so you can see it. They're the best intro ever. Shano, mate, take a bow. Take a bow, mate. You're a legend.
Wow.
Question for the potty. Once my eldest turns 18, can we buy the first lot of properties in a trust, which will still allow her to access the first home owner's grant if she wants her PPOR in the future? P.S. The banter on the podcast is hilarious. Thanks, Shane. Jimmy.
Mate, that is a complex. I choose the Fifth Amendment on this one.
You're to plead the Fifth. You're to plead the Fifth. You old bastard. How old are you, mate?
28. So this is a really complex one.
Yeah.
I know there's a whole bunch of rules around the first home buyer's grant. I think it's, from my understanding, each state has its own rules as well as. So I think this is a very specific question for your accountant, or you're a solicitor or a conveyancer.
Yep.
Because I just don't see how we can give this question unless you have the answer. Do you know?
This one is very much state by state, and state by state changes all the time when it comes to first home owner grants and whatnot as well. Shano, mate, I know you are a New South Wales based fella.
Blue.
He is a blue. He's got blue blood.
You used to be a blue, but you traded off to the...
Mate, shut up. He's got it. This one, mate, it is one for the accountant. It's a tough one as well because there's so many jurisdictions in terms of what you're talking about. Because being in New South Wales, any sort of interest whatsoever in property overrides your ability to get the first home owner's grant, which would kind of come into the equation on this one. But like the purchasing interstate in a trust, like there's so many complexities and layers to this question. There's a lot involved.
My view just on it, and I don't know how old.
Can I just say one thing as well?
How old is
Shane? Shano, I actually don't know. I think he's 40s. He's in his 40s.
Okay, so I can't imagine his child would be maybe what? I don't know. Who knows? But if his child's under 10, let's just say, and he's worrying about in 8 years' time, and they're looking to invest, like really,
so you're ripping Shano for.
Well, you did call me the old guy, not even the old dog,
the old dude,
the dude. All right, he's called me a dude.
Hey, dude.
All right, Shano. You're
So he
back.
thinks you're cool.
No, but I was just saying that maybe when you look at over the next 8 years,
Yeah.
let's just say his child is 10
Yep.
and he's got 8 more years. Really, if you're investing well enough for it, do you really need to rely on the first home buyers grant?
You know what I would
8
probably
years?
say as well, Shano, is one issue with going down trust, and if she's a director or if she's a beneficiary anyway, right? So because she's related to you, have 3, essentially, if it's a discretionary trust, you've got 3, whatever they call, generations of family around you, essentially are linked in beneficiaries, automatically. So, man, like what I probably would be looking to do is, because the issue as well is if she has to go on loan docs and stuff, this is going to hurt her anyway. So I would probably, mate, get her G'd up, getting an income, and then being able to kind of get out there and start building something, potentially herself as well. But even, man, like I'd be focusing more on, and this is, man, I know this is your question, right? This is what you're trying to do, but keeping things separate from a family side of things can be a better thing as well. I can say that from personal experience. Can be a better option than kind of, because the worst thing you do is think you're doing the right thing, and then a policy change comes in, and then she goes to buy a primary residence, and all of a sudden she doesn't get for a first home owner grant, she doesn't get a 20 grand stamp duty exemption, $10,000 grant, and that causing a problem within the family as well. So,
and we don't know if, again, we don't know how old Shane's daughter is. By the time
she could be newborn.
Well, if let's say she is, who knows if there is going to be a first home buyers grant at that point? You don't know.
Policy change.
So that's why you should never be making, I think you said this on one of the other ones.
I did.
One of the top, you should never be making any decision based on whatever policy the government's going to be doing, because they can always change it, right?
It was on the crunching data one, the picking areas, picking hotspots and whatnot, being very wary of policy change and whatnot. Because
it was one of the very few good points you had on that one.
Thank you. Well, there was only a few points made, so I'll take all of them. Thank you. Next question from you. Jim Bow.
From Mickey Pritchard.
Mickey.
Hey boys, loving the podcast. Interested to hear some more info on how to approach hitting your theoretical servicing ceiling. Tips to keep growing the portfolio using your strategies that don't involve starting your own business to gain more income or getting a huge pay rise.
Yes.
Assume this will involve a crafty broker or use of trusts and or second or third tier lenders. Thanks.
Big Mickey. This is a good one. So many people have actually been writing in lately about trust. Guys, we have an app coming up soon on trust, but I probably will dissect that either with a broker or an accountant and or both in terms of stretching your borrowing, because it can really, really stretch your borrowing. The important thing to note with trusts is if you max out your servicing in your personal name, it doesn't automatically mean because you go and open a trust that you now have increased serviceability in trust. If you have maxed yourself out with second and third tier lenders in your personal name, then you're done. So you kind of have to do it before you get there. The one issue is trusts are an expensive thing to kind of put into motion and to utilize, and you normally need higher deposits, and they cost money to set up and all the rest of it.
Ongoing fees too.
Yeah, everything. There's a lot of costs involved with trust. So you want to be wary of starting them too early. What I've always been a big believer of, and this is what I did, and I just fortuitously did this, we'll jump into this in the next potty on myself and my own story, was I hit my own serviceability wall, and I had a very large profit in a property that I sold off. And when I rolled that into trust, that was my game changer, because I'd reduced debt, and then I'd recycled that debt. Like the debt then got opened up to be able to be used into the trusts, and then I started rolling and playing in those games and really stretching it from there. So and man, one thing I'll say, Mick, I've only, there's only been 2 years, probably not even 2 years, maybe 1 year since I've actually been able to use my business income to be able to do anything. And I always made quite a small income before this as a PAYG employee. I was always on a very low wage, which I kind of built my property portfolio up into the 20s before I started, making anything different in terms of the business. So it is massively possible to build it in that sense, but you need to create equity first, and then if you potentially look at doing sell downs first before you go down that trust route, unless you're on that bigger income, you need to kind of create that. And then it's kind of like taking those steps forward with the plan that you are going to take a step back in terms of selling something to get the debt back and to get all the profit, and then roll it into trust and really start and punch on from there as well.
Okay.
I'll put something together in terms of a more explanatory podcast around this as well. We'll probably get on a bit of an industry expert or two to run through this too.
But what about separate to that? Separate to the trusts.
Yeah.
Separate to starting your own business. What can you control? Like I find when I speak to a lot of people, I say, tell me about your properties, and they run me through and what's it rented for. And often it's quite common. They often say, it's probably under market rented.
Yeah.
However, there been this and that and all that.
Yep.
And so I'm always prompting them saying, okay, well, you realize that might be hurting you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So really like things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there's only so much that like, you know, you're $50 a week under on one and $100 on another. Yeah, it's going to add some back into your portfolio. There's only so much it's going to do. If you're talking about, because I actually had another fellow direct message me as well, was just saying like, man, can you do a potty explaining trusts and how you can take your borrowing to the moon, you know, that sort of thing. Because like that's how you take your borrowing to a very, very different level. But there's always those little things. You want to keep on top of them, guys. Like even if you've got an amazing tenant, you don't want to let them drop like too far behind market rent. One of my favorite things has always been just to keep them within touching distance of market rent. You got a great tenant, but they're paying $20 a week less than market rent. They're going to look after you because you look after them, and they're going to stay in the property and stuff. Like if you drop $50 or $100 a week behind, it's very hard to then try and catch that up. Whereas if you always stay within touching distance of market rent, that's a great way of doing it. And yeah, pulling different levers within your portfolio. I guess the big thing as well is like how to approach hitting your theoretical servicing ceiling, making sure you're not buying negatively geared assets that are giving you an average, you know, a shitty return, you know, buying things that give you a decent rental return, you know, and building those within the portfolio, not sacrificing capital gains at the same time, but like building those correct properties in there that allow you to get to that first point.
Is there just also the element of just thinking, well, you know what? You're just going to have to wait 6 months or 12 months, or sometimes if interest rates you only can earn that much. You've squeezed every bit of rent. There's nothing you can do to the property. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And there's times where like, and I've had that discussion with clients before, and we're like, man, you've hit that wall because especially in the last 6 to 12 months, because interest rates have changed so much, and they come to me and they go, oh, like I don't know what to do now. Like what's the steps forward? And I go, man, you've got 3 or 4 great properties in great locations, but at the moment, you know, the only one that's probably near a peak is, let's say, somewhere in Brizzy, right? But the one in Brizzy, we're going to pull the lever. We're going to put a secondary dwelling on that at some point and get the additional income. So that's not the right property to sell. But I've got these 3 other properties in different locations that are still booming. It's too early to sell. You're going to cut your nose off to spite your face. Like, we need that debt back and we need the capital back to keep moving. But like that property is still so early in its cycle, we want to allow it to kind of keep running in the cycle and maximize the growth and not sell out too early. So I was just like, man, we've got to sit tight on this thing for it could be 6, 12 months.
Just be patient.
To then roll out at the peak, yeah. Because you want to. The worst thing you could do is you sell it and then you see it in 12 months go up by another 100,000. But we went and put you, and we might have gone and put you in 2 other markets that maybe were a lot earlier in their cycles. But then you might sit there, in that time frame and not see the same amount of growth. So it's you want to. You want to roll it where you can there as well, but you just be strategic. You don't want to sell out of markets too early if they're gonna be fit for a purpose.
And also, just looking at your own job, you might not have to start your own business, but for a lot of people, getting a promotion or asking for a pay rise or something like that, you might be surprised by what you can actually achieve.
Definitely.
By 10, 15, 20 grand pay rise can make a massive difference.
Massive.
Maybe it's asking a question. Maybe it's moving roles to another company that are going to pay you more or fishing out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you can control.
There's a lot of people. I was one of them who stuck. Like I stayed in a job that like I thought was okay, like was decent for my serviceability, and I was like, oh, I don't want to leave because of that, and it was security and like. Don't kid yourself. If you're staying there for like shitty reasons, like if you're trying to build something serious for yourself, one of my biggest regrets is not changing careers earlier, whether it was to something else or starting the BA, agency earlier or whatever. That and keeping that separate and taking too long to do it. I stayed in that thing too, longer than I probably should have. It is one of my biggest regrets. But like I was being weak, in that scenario of not just going off and finding something else. I was telling myself something and not going off and doing something else. Yes, it was serving a purpose, but I could have done a lot better out there and doing something else, and I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And even things like, exactly like you're right, mate. You might really enjoy what you do and really enjoy where you work, but ultimately, like if this is what you really want to do and you need a pay increase by $10,000 or $15,000, and if it's realistic, like if you're at the top of what you're worth in your game, in your industry, in your field, then it is what it is. But if there's room there to be able to ask for that pay increase and go for it, then all you can do is ask the question. No one's going to fire you, or if they are, they're a dick. If someone fires you because you come and ask for a 5 or 10 grand pay increase, if you legitimately feel like you're worth it and you've earned it, then it is what it is. It's worth.
I think that's a low lying fruit, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That pay rise. I mean, there is a labor shortage, so people need good people, and if you're good at what you're doing, ask for the cash. Show me the money, Jerry.
Man, I wonder if he'd be any good in a potty because like there's a bit of a labour shortage at the moment with a good co-host. I could use someone new.
I could do someone with better looking than you.
Pritchard, mate, send in your resume, buddy, for a co-host. I might be able to give you a pay rise. Moving on.
This is a free podcast, by the way. Free podcast.
What a Caroline. Thank you for sending in your question. This is to Jimmy, do you have any book recommendations? I'm presuming you've read a few more as you would have at least a decade or two over Sammy. Okay, low blow, Caroline,
yes.
but I appreciate it. Do you have any good book recommendations for me? Perhaps something out there that helps you in your investment journey that isn't Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Cheers, boys.
Very good. I do. I know I've seen Where's Wally books in your shelf.
Yes.
That's very high. And I noticed that a lot of your books.
Are you stumbling over you, Joe? You're having a bit of a fit or something over there. You all right? Did you smack your head on the mic?
However, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was a very good book,
okay.
Actually, may I say. It is actually a good book. There's also another book that Robert Kiyosaki has done. It's called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And that was a really important book for me because it actually runs you through the different quadrants of like from an employee to a self-employee to a business owner and investor, and basically saying to you that eventually you start out in a job, but eventually you want to move down to earning all of your income from the investor quadrant. Yes. So the game is to try and get to that investment quadrant as early as you can. So I took a lot from that.
Good one, Jimmy.
That is quite a good book.
Well done.
I would be saying be wary of some of the books that you do read because some of them might be quite outdated. So when you're listening to like a property book or you're reading, a property book or an audio book, if they're like, I read Steve McKnight's book, I think it was 0 to 130 or something.
0 to 130, 3.5 years.
But when you're looking at these books that are, he was buying properties in Ballarat for 50 grand or something. I mean, how do you relate to that right now? Don't you think that's a little bit challenging?
Look, his strategy, and this is, I know Caroline didn't ask me the question directly. It was directed to Jimmy.
Well, you just keep jumping in anyway, so you might as well.
But it was one of the game-changing books for me as well. I think if anything,
Steve McKnight's was.
Yeah, man, it was an extremely inspirational book. Like it was something that even when I read it, which probably would have been back in 2010ish, sort of, somewhere around there, it was one of the first books that I read when I went out looking for content. Even though it was outdated then, it's probably, if anything, even more outdated now. It's an extremely inspirational book for like stretching your thinking as to what's possible. And he's got some great lessons within it as well. I've always loved the way he kind of writes that. At some point I write my own book and I've always thought of doing it the same way of putting the lessons at the end of each chapter and whatnot. You pick up a lot of good stuff. But even though it's an outdated strategy, it can stretch your thinking and kind of give you some different ideas. And I actually took a lot out of that book as well. So it's outdated, but it's a good book, especially even just from an inspirational sort of level.
Yep. Can I actually just explain to people my view on this, right? And the reason why I say this is there's a really important element of this that I think everyone should take on board here, and it's about a bit of self-awareness of your capabilities. And the reason why I say that is for me, prior to working with you, I read a lot of books and digested a lot of info, right? But I was the typical guy that would read everything. You sort of knew a little bit of everything, but you wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't take any action. And I think there's a certain element of reading and getting all the knowledge and all the stuff, but I didn't take action on anything. So you can read 1 million books, but my portfolio, as I said to many people, I had one property when I started working with you. Yeah. And I was focusing on business, but I did nothing in investment. I was a terrible investor, even though I read everything and probably knew more than a lot of people, but I didn't do anything. Yeah. And your results is doing, not reading.
The big thing, man, it's a great point. Everyone gets like information overload and then they fall into analysis paralysis and like, shit, I don't know what to do. There's so many different strategies out there. What's the right thing for me? It's even like young Liam earlier asking about the commercial and stuff, because there's so much floating around about commercial these days. And then, boarding houses and bloody this, that, and all the rest of it. And it's just like, you got to pick. I reckon you've got like, it's okay to consume content initially. This is in my opinion, right? You want to consume content initially until something aligns with you and you go, yeah, I could have a good crack at this. And when you figure out whatever that is, then try and get as much info and absorb as much info about that as possible. Stop trying to go off and find everything else. Hone in on one thing. It's like the jack of all trades, right? Jack of all trades, but master of none.
That's right.
You don't want to be a master of none. You want to be a master of one
or
two strategies. If anything, laid on top of each other to maximize things and maximize deals. Man, it's a great point because a lot of people, they get stuck with this thing of information overload, too much going on, can't make a decision, can't pull the triggers. So, your easiest way, Caroline, is probably just to listen to Scouting Australia podcast on repeat and just.
But even that, right? Let's just say Caroline does read it, right? And she doesn't. But for me, the turning point, and I say to people because at the moment I'm lucky, I'm very fortunate. I'm approaching my 10th property. But when people say to me, gee, you've done so well. And I'm like, no, I've done nothing much better than you, whether you've got one or you're starting out. I say, don't give me the credit. The biggest credit that I've got is I said yes. And I actually backed something that I believed in and made the decision to engage. And I know we're telling people on this podcast they can do it on their own. Of course you can. But my self-awareness was strong enough to know that I wasn't going to do it on my own. That's why I pay you a fee to find a property for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that.
And help execute the strategy.
That's right.
So you don't make the mistakes.
That's right. So what I'm saying to people, like, you can read all the books, and I think it's great. I actually find myself now not wanting to read as many books because it's almost like you got to say no to more things than you got to say yes to, because it just confuses you. And I actually absorb less content because I want to keep my narrow focus about what I'm doing. So I'm just saying to Caroline, and maybe this is not answering a question, but if you find a strategy that works, and whether it's through a buyer's agent like our team, then you back it. Because for me,
did you forget the name of our team?
I backed you. That's what I say. I say I just backed the right horse, and he had a big ass.
Wow, the silver dog. He's cracked himself. They say you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes.
It was that funny.
It was that funny. Hey, you've aged like 10 years, you laugh that hard. Wow. And just to fill in there, guys, you forgot the name of the team. The name of the team's Australian Property Scout. I don't know if you got that one.
I thought it was started with a H. But anyway.
Hopeless. That's what that starts with. Go on, mate.
So anyway, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
If you find a team to back and they are doing the results, you do not need to always do it on your own. Because hand on heart, I wouldn't do it on my own. But Beautiful. I've done enough through using someone who's better than me at it.
That's good.
And lucky you've got Morgan because she's the best.
Oh, Jimmy. Mate, you're as ugly as your jokes. All right. Caroline, thank you. I know we didn't really give you too many book recommendations.
No, but the latest podcast is probably the best thing. Get on some property podcasts. They're current, relevant,
and then
frequent,
follow the ones,
quick.
100%.
Follow that.
Follow the ones you like.
All right, Tommy B.
Oh, big dog.
Metro versus regional.
Oh.
When one might be preferable to the other, and what you see in rental and growth differences between the two.
Okay.
Gee, this could be another whole episode.
This is a whole episode. So, Big Tommy, I appreciate you sending in the question. We definitely need to do this as its own app because there's so much to kind of unpack within this. The first thing is like when one might be preferable to the other, what you see in rental and growth differences between the two. Man, it's as if you are comparing one to two. Like this one location to the other location, being regional versus city. Man, there's however many capital cities in Australia, 8 or whatever it is, and then you've got all these other, huge number of other regional cities and then smaller cities within that as well. There is so much to unpack in terms of like what you should be going for within those different things as well, and which market you should be picking. To give you a broad brushed answer on it and how I would probably deliver on this, if I was just to, throw out my 2 cents. If you were starting out your portfolio, I personally like to build out Metro when I'm starting out someone's portfolio. You can still get good yields, and you can obviously you get great growth if you're buying into the right location, but you can still get that result in regional as well. There a lot of the time though is that safety for a lot of people in their minds with a metro market over a regional. So if we can, budget wise, we typically start clients' journeys in a metro market and then transition them into strong regional markets with good yields, especially as we get a little bit further down the track. But man, it is an awesome question and one that we would definitely unpack in a full episode for you to kind of break down, in a lot more detail, probably how we would go about that search and that journey as well.
So it's not black and white, really. It's not black and white. Yeah,
it's not.
And every region is going to be completely different.
100%.
Metro,
Yeah.
Okay. And where you're at your portfolio at that point?
100%, dude. 100%. Alrighty.
Big O.
Big Oliver. Oliver's a good legend. He's a good fellow. I know Oliver well.
Are you going to start this one?
Young client. Yeah, I'll kick this one off. G'day, Sam, Jimmy, and the APS team. Even Oliver knows who the bloody you're working with. All right. I had a few questions for the podcast come to mind if you're up for it.
I think we are.
We are, Oliver. Thank you. By the way, loving the podcast and looking forward to Q&A number 3.
Here we are.
Which you're on, Ollie. Beautiful. Jimmy, question for you.
Yes.
When you get back the building and pest report, by the
Yes.
way, Oliver's got a big bunch. We're going to smash through these.
Yes.
Jimmy, when you get back the building and pest report, how do you decide what needs fixing and what doesn't? Do you usually fix things straight away?
Well, first of all, if you have a good buyer's agent, they usually vet it for you and tell you what you should and shouldn't actually focus on.
Definitely.
That's the first thing. My thing is all about...
And negotiate if things come up as well.
Negotiate. You've negotiated plenty off the pest and building.
Yes.
For you know what? Just to give you a plug.
Oh, thank you.
Because I've been a bit harsh on you with the big ass thing. However, I remember
got a lot
one
of discounts in the arse or what? Come on, mate. Come on. Hold your shit together.
I remember one of the very first deals we did. Oh, jeez.
Oh, do you want me to answer it?
Try and be serious.
Do you want me to
I was
answer
going to
it?
give you. I was actually going to give you.
Sorry. Yeah, go
I was
for
going to give you
it.
some
I'll take the
kudos.
plug. Come on.
Jeez. One of the very first deals you did for me, you actually, I'll keep it together. There's going to be one professional one in the group. You actually negotiated the deal and we almost lost the deal because you were pushing on the pest and building too hard.
Fucking oath.
The big hindquarters.
Mate, I was turning around, throwing big leg kicks out the back. The agents were ducking them and weaving all around. Straight to Brisbane running red.
So the important point there is if you have a good buyer's agent or if you are doing it, you need to negotiate on the pest and building to really drive the value out of that. Now, what should you be focusing on or fixing is really a priority thing. There's the must-haves and there's the nice-to-haves.
Yes.
And it's all cost-benefit analysis. Like, am I going to do this? What's the benefit of it? So there's no use fixing things just to make it pretty because no one gives a rat's. The numbers do not care.
Yeah.
So you really got to focus on high-priority things. Will that affect actually me wanting to buy the deal, first of all, and go through with it, or rent it out?
Yeah.
My thing would be only that.
I think one of the big things as well is like you should be leveraging, like you said, buyer's agent on this side as well. And this is where like so often like the cost of a BA, sometimes like we've had before where I've negotiated more than the BA fee off a bloody building and pest for the right deals, right? But then also when it comes to it of like them advising you and going through this and letting you know what's worth fixing, what's not. Because sometimes people get very emotionally invested and go, oh no, like, but I want to make it how they would want to live in it. And that's the wrong vein of thinking. You want to do it to a rentable that will get you the right rent, maybe not the absolute top rent because you don't want to renovate to the absolute top level. You just want to get this thing fixed, sorted, being able to be rent out a good solid market rent or slightly above. And a lot of the time, your easiest person to lean to in that situation as well, lean on, is your BA you're working with and or your property manager. Because your property manager is going to be the one leasing it. They're going to tell you the things, these are what we need to get fixed, this is what we don't. And depending on your relationship or the introduction, again, have you been introduced by someone reputable or are they just someone that you found yourself? You sometimes need to be a little careful in that up front with what are they recommending? Are they recommending everything to make this thing amazing so it's the easiest job for them ever to do? Or are they just recommending what I need to get done to get this thing leased and move on from there?
Also, they do look really bad when you get them a lot of the time because they are trying to be conservative and they need to cover their backs with litigation and so forth. So if you don't know what you're doing, you can think the whole house is going to fall over.
100%. I've had so many agents like, you know, they don't want to send you if you don't know them all that well initially or whatever when you're building relationships, they don't want to send you building a pest of properties that have fallen over because they're like, oh man, it looks pretty bad. And you look at it, it's like it's a couple of pages of maintenance shit. Like, yeah, it looks bad because they take a close up 10 centimeters away from this little crack that looks like it's a huge crack. And so always take it. Speaking of a huge crack, mate, you are a shocker. You're a shocker today. Jesus.
I didn't say anything.
No, you're just cracking up. Anyway,
move on. Let's move on. What's the market like at the moment in the areas you're looking at in regards to both buyer and seller behavior? Wow, straight to you.
Straight to it. It's a funny time in the market where there's been all this doom and gloom for about 12 months now because of all the interest rates. And I can say there are a lot of markets out there, or there is a good number of markets out there right now that are absolutely on fire. Where things we were talking about a property we bought for you 6 months ago, and you're up 75K plus, right?
Yep.
Probably if not more, right? In that time frame, and this is on like it was 375. Yeah. So like you've had, it's probably more than the 75 now, but like there's markets out there right now that are really booming and they're doing really well. And there's other markets that are still very early in their cycles, but they're heating up like that as well. This is a very interesting thing to note is probably 97, 98% of the markets out there in the country right now are going to go through some pain due to affordability and a lot of these fixed interest rates coming off and people's borrowing capacities going down. There's a lot of markets out there right now that are not the right places to be buying in. In terms of the markets that we're buying in, they're still hot or we strongly believe they're coming around in their cycles and getting ready for a run. But yeah, that's what you just got to be a little bit wary of on that front. But ours are good. Like I'm predicting some extremely strong growth this year.
Awesome. I've got another one actually. If I can continue.
Big Ollie.
This is a really important one, I thought. What drives a selling agent to deal with Australian Property Scout over other buyers agents? So what is typically going through the selling agent's head?
Yes.
Ollie recently was shown a property only for a different selling agent in the same business to sell it for more to a different buyer's agent. So he missed out on a deal.
Yeah.
Someone else in the seller's agent office gave it to another. So another buyer's agent essentially paid more for it.
Standard. They're competing with it. Like they're working, you know. Most people are paying more than us.
So what drives the selling agent to want to work with you?
So we build very, very strong agent relationships with the people that we work with. We're very good on that front, and we deliver always on what we tell agents we can deliver on, and that builds a very good level of trust. There's a lot of shit buyers agents out there that act in very average fashion for whatever reason, for like a lot of different reasons that I probably won't go.
But they want to get the deal done,
100%,
and make the commission.
So they want someone that they can rely on completely, and when you follow through on that time and time again, that's why they want to work with you. And you know, when you're talking about something that might be like a 20,000, 25, or you maybe in the seller's mind, you know, 10 to 20 grand below market, that they actually don't realize the market's jumped a bit, and it might be 20 to 30 or 25, 30, whatever. You know, a lot of the time they know they can do that quick and easy with us. It's a phone call, it's done in a 24-hour deal sort of thing. It's turned around super quick. That's where an agent will want to work with us, because they know we can deliver on that, right, on that brief. In terms of work compared to other BAs, that's what I'm talking about as well. There's just so many average operators out there, shady operators, people that tell they're going to do something and then don't follow through with it. You know, just trouble people on that end as well. There's going to be a potty coming out with my thoughts on BA soon.
The bull shark is getting ready.
I was thrashing around the other night. I should have recorded on the fly.
You should have.
That probably would have been too explicit to be.
Might have had a few legal ramifications.
Probably. So I'll probably get that on the heads a little bit more on the shoulders. In terms of like, I was recently shown a property only for a different selling agent in the same business to sell it for more to a different buyer's agent. We've witnessed this a bit in the larger offices. So, you know, when a listing is typically signed on, they throw it, or they have to throw it on a listing board, right? That the whole office gets to see. What can happen is if another agent in the office that knows that they can push, you know, property to a shit buyer's agent for more money, you know, they'll shop it around and they'll try and take it out straight away. That is a very uncommon situation. That probably would have happened to that agent. That would have been the first time it happened to him. He probably wouldn't have it happen to him again, because he'll lose a portion of his comm on that he would have lost to the other agent. So like what we would typically find from this point is an agent like that, he wouldn't go and put it on the listing board anymore. And instead what he would do is he would just bring it completely off market, not put on listing board.
Nice.
By the time he's put on listing board, he's sold it. So that's the way. And that's what we find a lot of time. This is where I start to really get my back up out lately is like, you know, let's say and we actually had this happen to us a little bit lately where, you know, a property gets brought to us at, let's say in the 360s, and we're trying to buy it sub 350 because we know it's actually probably worth around 375. We're making about 25 grand on the way into the deal. It's a good deal, 350 or less. Negotiate, hit a bit of a block, getting close, another BA will come in and pay 380 for it.
Wow.
And you're just like, fuck's sake, like, you know, and it really pisses me off because we bust our ass on this and we push really hard. And I know, like, a lot of people respect us for the way that we operate in this manner, and it is why we are who we are. But it still does my head in when people come in and then they just pay overs for it, or they pay market value or pay overs for it, and like you're busting your ass for it to try and get this thing, try and negotiate the best deal. And it's been happening actually a bit lately because there are only a small amount of, you know, markets that are left out there. It's happening in some of these ones that we're probably almost at the point of exiting. Like it's had a bit of growth and we're already in and investing in other areas, but there's still some good opportunities. And like I was saying, if you pick that deal up for sub 350, it's still a great deal. Still good left, you know, good amount left in the tank. Someone comes in and pays, you know, 10% more than you. That's a BA supposed to be operating in their best interest. It does my head in.
Yeah, wow.
Anyway, there'll be a rant potty coming soon on that, guys.
I'm sure there will.
We'll move on from that before I slap the nearest person to me in anger.
Tommy, get out of the way, Tommy.
Mate, your big schnoz is close as well, I tell you.
Should we continue with Ollie or should we finish with Jaden? Because I think how long are we going? We're getting close. We're getting close.
I'm going to smack these last two quickly,
Okay.
all right? When approaching a lease renewal with your tenants, do you usually take the manager's advice on rental increases?
I think it really depends. I mean, if
On
you
the quality of the property manager.
100%.
Yeah.
And you should already have that trust in them.
Yes.
Like now with my current property manager, I just back her judgment. Previously, when they would send me their advice.
You'd always, this is the previous property manager, you'd go and check on market and see what they're actually
they would
worth.
send me and I'd ask them why.
Yeah.
Like if they said, like there was no reason, like tell me why, why, or we don't think this, and they couldn't. And then I'd have to do the research. And I'm like, why am I doing the research?
Yeah, terrible.
So you basically you're answering your own question. If you got the right property manager, it doesn't take long to do a bit of due diligence to see what's on the market.
100%.
So
100%. But I'd always, just quickly double check what's on the market.
do ask
and then,
them.
Yeah, and then question them on it as well. And if they're great tenants, always, like I said before, always good, okay to leave it like that little bit under.
Okay.
But if they're questionable, they haven't been the best tenants, then you want to be pushing for market or pissing them off and getting someone new.
Next one. With interest rates rising, are clients still capitalising on equity uplift and borrowing more or holding off buying until a larger cash injection can be made for the next purchase?
Okay, so I think we covered off on this last week with that ep that we did last week. And I think the big thing with this one is looking at that opportunity cost of, well, if I sit out and I wait for more cash to come out or if I save up a bit more or whatever, but if I lose 12 months in the market because I'm like hesitating on that side, as opposed to pulling 100 grand out, paying you 5 or 6% interest on it, whatever you're borrowing at the time you're listening to this, that's 5 or 6 grand a year extra in repayments. But then if you go out and invest that, and you, like I was saying in that previous example, you make you literally make 25K on the way in, and then that market does a 10% run this year, and you make another 40, 50K on top of that. You're literally from five grand that's cost you to pull that cash out and invest it into this deal, and you're now that far in front, plus being able to keep leveraging and going beyond. I am always a firm believer in it, and pretty much all our majority of our clients are as well, that have the serviceability to do it. But again, sometimes it's worth looking at the market. Has this thing peaked out, or is it close to peaking out? Is it actually a better opportunity to sell it, get rid of the debt, get all the cash back out of the deal, get all the profits out of the deal, and maybe we go roll into 2 or 3 others instead. And maybe one of those is a cash flow deal that supports the rest of the portfolio.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
This is the final question here, actually, and I think it's quite a good one that would like you to answer, because I think it's quite relevant for you, and I'm curious what your answer is. This is from Jaden Lanos.
Big Jado.
We love Jado and the family. They have been, they're awesome. Jaden, I know you had a few different questions, but we're just going to touch on this one because your other ones we're going to come back to you and give a bit more info on. But this one is from Jaden. And Jaden says, I believe a lot of people who are starting their journey with APS or in property in general are doing so to build wealth and fund bigger and better lifestyles. It would be great to hear about when you can start rewarding yourself, and more importantly, best ways to execute big purchases without putting big dents in your portfolio or disadvantaging yourself. So I think this is an important topic, as it is a reason me, Sam, and probably many people start this journey in the first place. To hear about the rewards it can bring really gives me the motivation to want to keep pushing through the long game of property investing. Yeah. So this is a really important one, and I'd love to hear your view, because obviously you've built a sizable portfolio compared to a lot of people out there. At which point do you reward yourself for lifestyle things? Okay, so it always comes down to a couple of things, and different people have different goals. So let's say you had a goal of $100,000 of a passive income. You could probably build that out either in one hit or pretty close to one run at building out the portfolio, right? You typically would need around about 6, maybe 7 properties to get there. To $100,000 passive, obviously those properties need to mature. The growth properties, bread and butters, need to go through their cycles and whatnot. The reason I'm bringing that up, that's a goal that's relatively achievable in like it's a good goal that's achievable in like a relatively realistically quick time frame, right? It won't take you ages and ages to achieve that sort of goal. But if your goal is 300,000, it's a very different goal that you're going to need to build in different stages. Now, the person with the $300,000 goal, I would say you need to sacrifice and you need to not buy anything that's like a big ticket thing, big purchases that you really want for yourself. I'd say you need to wait till you hit 300, or you hit the portfolio that's going to produce 300,
and then you start investing, you start rewarding yourself with a few of the profits that are made off the back of that. But if you're going for 100K and that's your goal, so you have a much closer goal, which is always relative to the person, then I'd say you can probably pull the trigger on that, something like that a little bit quicker. But I think what's super important, and this comes to buying your own home, this comes to like, if you're living at home with your parents and that's adding to your serviceability and like, you're sacrificing for a year or two doing that so you can keep investing. I think like there's sacrifices for the greater good of what you really, really want to achieve. Like I look at the shitbox ute that I drove up until I was 27 before. And then when I was 27, I sold a unit, and from the unit I profited about 220K. And at that point, I went out and I bought myself a $30,000 ute, brand new ute. I'd never owned anything brand new. I'd always driven around in old shit boxes. And I went out and I bought that brand new ute for $30K, and I went and put the 190 into 2 deals. And I think at that time, that was when I was finally like, I'm going to reward myself for this decision that I've made, for these deals that I've done and what I've sacrificed for over that time. But at the time I was 27, I started investing at 19, and I'd hard sacrificed that whole way to there. And you notice how I didn't take on bad debt to take that on, right? To buy that thing. I think what's really important to note is you're wanting these big purchases and not putting big dents in the portfolio or disadvantaging yourself. The only way you're doing that is by ruining your serviceability. The only way by ruining your serviceability is by buying something like that with debt. So probably the easiest way to answer that question is when you can afford to buy it in cash. And but I'm not talking like a 200K car. You sell a property, you clear 200 grand. It's the first sale you do, and then you go buy that, and you're like, oh shit, well I actually don't have anything else to do anything with, right? It's like the cars. Like I've got two quite nice cars in my garage. I waited a long time before buying those. I literally didn't buy those until last year. I could have bought them 5 years ago. I could have bought them when I sold that house in 2017. Sold the unit. I could have bought them back then. I could have bought one in cash and probably taken the debt for the other. I could have bought one of them then. But instead, I used the profits to build the rest of the portfolio. So I'd say like your big purchases that you really want to do for yourself, like your primary residence and like your really nice cars and all that sort of stuff. When you want to go and do that stuff, and I go back to this and I say this quite often, it's like you got to earn the right. You got to earn the right to go and do this shit. You can't just be like, oh, I had one win in property. I made all this money on this deal. Mad. Reinvest it. Go put it into something else. Quadruple that. When you quadruple that and you come back in 5 years and you're buying that thing in cash and you've still got the rest of your portfolio building, mad, man. Massive hats off and massive respect here. But you sell it, you bank it, and then you go and blow it. It's like, well done for doing it and being able to go buy the thing in cash. But if you stopped your journey flat dead, then it's like, well done, but you're back to square one. You're at the start. You've let ego do the talking and stopped yourself. So I would say when you can afford to do it in cash and have either built what you're wanting to build, or you've got enough left over that you can still really go and do what you really want to do.
So really think about the purchase as well. Like, is that going to make, you could go out and say you buy a $100,000 car, but once you've driven that around for a few months, is it really like, and then you realize you can't go and do the purchase. Is that going to fill the void, or you thought that would?
I reckon for someone who's had a great win out of property and then they did that, I reckon they'd start thinking after a few months and going like this, they're going to be looking at the market and seeing the FOMO. Oh man, I could have bought these other couple of properties or whatever, and be growing there as well. I like where you're going with that. And I think it comes down to, again, a bit of self-awareness, knowing where you're at and where you want to get to. And I'm a bit older than you, not by much. A lot.
But a little bit. But my whole thing has always been about delayed gratification.
Yep.
And I often have this conversation with my partner all the time. She's like, when are you going to actually enjoy anything? I'm like, I am actually enjoying anything. I don't need to spend $100,000 on a car to make me feel any better than my current Datsun.
No, you've got the Pee-wee, don't you? Pee-wee 30.
So
down Melbourne.
My point is,
can you ride that thing in the rain? But like, is that road
with the training wheels? Yeah, it's got training wheels.
Okay. Keeps you on in the rain.
Reward yourself with certain things, and just ask yourself, what is this really going to make a big difference to my life, or is this my ego that I want to put a post on Instagram or Snapchat, is what you use? Is this going to
about 5 years? But yeah. Anyway, can I say as well, guys? And this is being dead raw with this and dead honest. It's actually really funny. I didn't even realize. This has been super raw. I got a 250K car. I got a really nice. I'm a massive Land Rover fan, right? Like I've loved Land Rovers my whole life. In the last couple of years, they brought out the new Defender, and I've looked at this thing for the last couple of years, loving this thing. but never not buying one, not even thinking I'd buy one. And then an opportunity came up when I bought my other car that got offered, and because they were an 18-month wait, and then I got offered one that was pretty much coming in within 3 months. I would have had that thing for 6 months.
Now you've had it for 6 months.
Yeah, I love it. It's a supercharged V8. It's beautiful. It's literally like driving on a cloud. It's airbag suspension. It's fucking amazing. I love that car. I haven't posted it on Instagram. I haven't posted it anywhere. I probably should because I love the plates. Scouting, like my plates are scouting, so I'm fucking proud of that car. I love that car. But I remember thinking when I was younger and I was building this out, the reason I'm telling you this is because when I was younger and I was building this out, I remember thinking in my head, I can't wait till I own like a sick car and I can post it and I can actually feel like I'm somebody. And then when you get to this point and you build it out, you don't give a fuck about what anyone else thinks about you because you've made it. You've made this thing. You've achieved what you wanted to achieve. Who cares about anyone else and their opinion? Because a lot of the time what you do as well is you go along and you'll find the people that came with you along the journey and that you really built this thing with along the journey and kind of stayed in your circle when you weren't going out and, you're probably going to stop going out partying at some point because you're going to mature at these different points. The people that are still there with you, that like they're going to be good people and they don't care. They don't need to see it. They'll get excited when they rock up and they go, oh, fuck, when did you get that? I was like, I got it a month ago. It's like, what do you mean a month ago? How do I not know about this thing? You know? And man, honestly, I haven't realized I didn't post that thing on anything until right now. But I don't care. Who cares what anyone else thinks? You get to this point where it's different level and no, you don't care about anyone else's opinion because you've achieved what you set out to do. But maybe that's what you want to do and that's great. But if you're at the bottom and you think that's what you want to do, it's funny because I was there as well and your mentality will change because as a person you will change, you'll become stronger. You just don't care what other people think anymore. And it was a huge shift that came in my mind with my family, with my friends, and then even just with like the rest of the world. And I probably should post this. It's a mad car. I fucking love it. And I love the plates. I'm super proud of it.
I think on behalf of everyone listening, I think that's a beautiful story. And I know how much we give each other shit and all that sort of stuff. But I know you don't really talk a lot about those kind of things, but it is a very genuine thing I know that you're saying. And I think it's representative of the kind of person that you are and the reason why you do things. So I think if we're going in a deeper level about what really counts is that you had a motivation to want to improve your life. Yeah. And once you achieve that, you don't need to prove to anyone else what you've got. So I think that's really getting down nitty gritty for people listening is really that self-awareness
100%
of are you doing this to try and impress people who really don't give a fuck what they don't care about you really. I mean, for 2 seconds they might.
No, you know what though, man? What I honestly reckon is like you'll find you end up more people will hate you because they'll be jealous of you or what you've done.
The envy.
Yeah, the envy, man. And they're like, fuck, that motherfucker. Like he's gone and done this stuff. You know what I mean? But, like,
who does he think he is?
Yeah, like I've just gone to parties for the last 7 years or whatever. And this guy's done all this on the side and worked his ass off for it. But like, and even if like they know deep down that you've done the work that they haven't to get it, they're probably going to talk shit about you or whatever anyway. So you know what I mean?
You know what? I know we've gone on a little bit, but just on this.
You have, but
just on this final topic, because I think this is really important.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad it took you 55 minutes to get into some good stuff.
Well, man, I was just trying to equal minutes to your age to get a bit of gold, you know what I mean?
But the reality is when it comes down to it and you look at yourself in the mirror, all that other shit really backs off and you cannot hide away from who you really are. So you can pretend to be all these things. And I've done it before as well. When you look at yourself in the mirror and you look into your eyes, you're bare bones. So the cars and all that, but your own self-awareness of your own journey and your satisfaction within yourself for what you've achieved is really going to come down to your application and having a crack at something to feel good and that sense of accomplishment. Having a car and posting, no one cares. But you inside the feeling of when you go to bed and or you look at yourself in the mirror of that sense of, you know what, I've actually done this and that you're so proud. You don't need to tell anyone else because you've already got the feeling.
You know how much joy I get driving that thing?
I bet.
I love it, man.
I bet.
I love it.
But that is the joy. It's 100%. The actual living it. Yeah. It's not telling people about how good it is. It's you experiencing it. And I think what a way to finish off this Q&A. And that
was beautiful.
If you're stuck around to the end, you've been rewarded.
You've been rewarded.
Sammy's finally given us something.
It was 52 minutes of dribble from Jimmy and a couple of moments of goodness from myself.
But I think we're going to dive a little bit more into this sort of part because I think this is really the crux of it. This is the real bare bones of what it is all. Because what the hell are we doing this for?
Yeah,
this is what we're doing it for.
Man. Yeah.
For your for you to feel good. Because when we're all dead, no one gives a shit. No one's going to care.
That's it.
So
I'm with you,
well
mate.
done, Sammy. That was really nice to share that.
Thanks, bro. And I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Mate, another great app with you, man. I really appreciated that. It was great questions as well by the listeners, guys. Thank you very much for sending in all your questions. And if you've got anything else that you want answered, maybe you have some questions off the back of some things we spoke about today, send in your questions, guys. In the notes section of this podcast, there is the link to be able to send in all your questions and requests and whatnot. Jimmy's done a decent performance again today. I think we'll keep him on for another week or two.
Thank you very much.
No worries at all, mate. If you took value out of this podcast, any little bits that you that you in particular took, any of the little questions and segments within that, please send it on to anyone within your circle. Like we say, we're trying to help you build your circle of influence so everyone can start thinking along the same vein as you with whatever was in that. There was like 6 or 8 questions or whatever it is. You might have 6 or 8 people that each different question might have related to. So any value, guys, that you really found, please send it on. We want to keep sharing, growing this community because I want to create as many people that think like us as possible because we're game changers and you want to be surrounded with people that all think the way that we all do. And if you're listening to this, you're thinking along this same way.
Absolutely.
So big kudos and respect to you as well. Guys, if you got any questions, like I said, in the notes section, there's that little email link. You can click through to that. You can obviously, as always, go on to www.australianpropertyscout.com.au if you want to book in a call with the big man himself, a big disco call, as I like to call the discovery calls. Jimmy likes to party, like the Zohan. And obviously, guys, on the socials as well, make sure you're following us at Australian Property Scout. We're putting up deals, putting up these, obviously, all the little clips and all the good stuff from all this as well. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I loved recording it with you, big man Jimmy. Q&A number 3. Send them in, guys. Keep it going for another Scouting Australia podcast. Until next week, guys.